Good Tuesday to you, everybody in Com 785. Welcome to the second video of week 3. Bam! How's everybody doing? You doing okay? All right. Now, if you go over to the course content folder for this week, week 3, you'll see the first video in which I discuss the material for this week, as well as go over an article that I wrote and put up in a magazine some time ago, in which I walk you through, my approach, at least in that piece, to persuasive writing, public relations writing. Okay, so let's talk about your discussion boards from last week, week 2, including your essays. All right, now during the weeks that you will get essays, what I'm going to do is, I may give you one, maybe 2 questions, and the majority of the points for that week will be designated to the essay. All right. But the question, although there'll be fewer questions during the weeks with essays, the questions are still important because it's going to be from the discussion questions and from the major points that they highlight in the readings that I'll take the material for the midterm and final exam. So, make sure that you cover it and you do both. Okay. First things first, let's take a look at the question. This is from a story that Cialdini relates in his book, Persuasion, instead of Persuasion, you'll get it, about a guy who he was shadowing named Jim, was actually his name. And Jim had this tactic, this technique. He was in the home security business, and while in the midst of talking to clients in their homes, he would say, I've got to get something for my car. Excuse me. So the question was, why, according to Cialdini, did Jim ask his sales prospects to excuse him while he retrieved something from his car? Please explain why, in your opinion, Jim's behavior was or was not ethical. Okay. Billy, you went first, so let's take you first. According to Cialdini, Jim asked to be excused to step away from his car for an important document he forgot to bring. He stated he did not want to interrupt the other sales representative during their sales pitch. So asking to be excused enabled him to step away while also allowing the customer to receive the pitch from the representative. Yes and no. That's not why he did it. Okay. The dismissal technique was mainly used to gain the homeowner's trust. Correct. Now, I don't know if it came out, but in the reading, Cialdini, in the text, Cialdini is referring to actually Jim being alone with the prospect. So Jim is setting up a scenario in which the individuals, they're by themselves, they're in the middle of a discussion with him, have someone that they don't know, Jim, enter their home. Okay. Why does he do that? Okay. Well, as you point out, Billy, was mainly to gain the homeowner's trust. Cialdini explains that one of the significant winning points is the ability to gain typo there, Billy, to gain the confidence of the person you are trying to sell or promote an item to. Okay. Let's take a look at Brandy. What did you say? Jim's decision to step away from his client's meeting during a sales meeting was a measure of their trust in him that he hoped would be significant enough to win the sales. Or that's also partially right. But what Jim is trying to do is to get them to associate him with trust. He's not trying to measure their trust. That he knows that you don't let people in and out of your house that you don't trust. Ergo, if he becomes a person that you let in and out of your house, that will trigger the trust. And in particular, in this week's reading in Cialdini, pay attention to these words that Cialdini highlights in some of the research. Say the difference between asking someone, are you happy? Are you unhappy? Could you help me? Okay, words that prime the brain to think a certain way, or you might even say prime emotions to feel a certain way. All right. What you're seeing in the behavior pattern of this sales guy, Jim is that priming. And Cialdini refers to it as shunting. Okay, he's setting it up so the prospects' emotions and mind get shunted down a particular path. All right. Okay. So the question is this ethical? Because this is clearly manipulation for a desired end, namely to sell them a home security system. Okay. Let's see. Let's continue with you, Brandy. What do you have to say? As Jim stated in Cialdini, the act of leaving and re-entering the client's home of his own accord signified that he established enough rapport and trust with those individuals that they did not feel they needed to oversee his coming and going. I have conflicting feelings about Jim's behavior. On the one hand, I see Jim's approach as strategic and not necessarily unethical. He is measuring the success of the interaction by how his clients respond to his trust. This considered, however, there's a deficit of information needed to determine whether or not Jim truly earned their trust. Okay, now remember, again, pay attention to what you're reading for week 3 in Cialdini. This is shunting. This is not testing on the part of Jim. All right, we are, it's how we're wired. Our physical behavior is wired to our mental disposition and vice versa. All right. I mean, that's why, for instance, within the Christian scope, that kneeling, I mean, you find this in other religions, supplication, kneeling is incorporated into the act of prayer, because as a physical act, as a physical act of submission, and it reminds us that we're not the masters of the universe. And it's easy to think that way because we're the dominant bipeds. We walk around on 2 legs and we've got all the opposable thumbs and all the neat tools that we can manipulate with them. So it's easy for us to begin to assume that we are the preeminent force in the universe when we're not. And by kneeling, this physical act, or in the case of other religions, laying flat on your face, which was for many, many, many centuries traditional among Christians, to show supplication, submission before God. Doing that physical act triggers that, whatever word you like, mental, psychological disposition. Jim's just flipping that in reverse. He's moving through a physical act that he knows will trigger a mental disposition in his client. All right. So this is shunting, where physicality meets mentality. Okay. On the other hand, I see Jim's approach strategic, not necessarily unethical. He's measuring the success of interaction and trust. This considered, however, there is a deficit of information needed to determine whether or not Jim truly earns their trust. He equates getting the sale as securing their trust. In actuality, we do not know enough about the clients with a possessive S. You losing me, Brandy. Clients to determine whether their behavior was unique to Jim because of the rapport he established. Okay, true. But what we're not doing here is we're not analyzing the effectiveness of his technique. All right, what we're asking is about the ethics of his technique. Excuse me, which raises the question in communication that especially if you go to work in the PR field in strategic communication, you will wrestle with. And that is, where is the line between ethical and unethical when you speak to constituents in a way that they will hear? So Jim, knowing that people who trust the person that's giving them information, that where that trust is established, there's a higher rate of sales. I mean, that's well established. So Jim goes through a physical act, leaving and letting himself back in, that he knows will trigger that disposition of trust, and he raises his chance of making a sale. So the question that pops up for strategic communication people is if you frame, whether it's using words or technique or tone, and you'll read about in this week's selection from Cialdini, how people get people to lean in and listen more closely because they know that increases their concentration. Whichever of those that you identify and use, if you know those are part of how people hear, I mean, they're hearing you, but it's not, click on the brain, how they hear a message. Is it unethical to speak to those tendencies? Some would say, well, that's manipulation. You're manipulating the tendencies. Others would say, well, it's no more manipulative than if you got up in front of an audience of English speakers and gave them a speech written, read out a speech in German or Spanish or Swahili, or just pick another language that no one in the crowd would understand. So what's ethical here? Where's manipulation versus communication? Alan, let's see what you have to say. According to Cialdini, Jim asked his prospects to excuse him while they retrieved something from his car to establish a greater sense of trust. That's exactly right. You've got that in the right order. Jim was a salesperson for a fire alarm system who did things a little different from what he did another salesperson. Okay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. In my opinion, I think Jim's approach is both ethical and unethical. Okay, now, I want you as readers to stop trying to split the baby. All right? I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Alan, but this will never fly in a million years out in the marketplace. You could not tell an organization, a company, well, we're going to do this, and it could be unethical or ethical. No, right? First of all, you need to decide based on the evidence you have. And do you have all the evidence, and is it a perfect scenario? No, it's not. It rarely is. So you need to decide based on the evidence that you have. And if you decide it's unethical, you need to be able to say why. And, then you come to another bifurcation. It's unethical because, well, can we change the unethical part and retain the activity, gaining trust? Or is it just hopelessly unethical and we throw the whole activity out the window? We just forget about it. Okay. But it's this or it's that. No. Okay. I need you to be definitive. Okay. Let's take a look at, let's see, I had someone else selected here. Cheryl, let's take a look at what you say. Okay. After first review of the reading, it seems as though Jim was using an unethical method, but upon further reading, Jim was using a tactic as part of his sales presentation. According to Cialdini, each of the sales presentations he's observed with Fire Alarm Company follow a sales sequence. For example, sales reps would meet with potential clients in their home, make small talk, then zero in on the sales pitch. This was a way the sales reps would build trust. For Jim, on the other hand, his go-to presentation was to follow the sales sequence until the clients are taking a timed 10-minute test on fire safety, at which time Jim would act as though he forgot something in his car and asked the couple if it was okay to let himself out of the home. Cialdini persisted to know why about Jim's forgetful tactics. Jim explained, who do you let walk into your house on their own? Only someone you trust. Okay. Okay. I want to be associated with trust, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I'm trying to see if in this you get to why this is okay. While some may view this, as unethical, Cialdini explains that all Jim had to do was position himself to be associated with someone, i.e. a close friend or family member, that was trusted and provided sound advice, hence favorable gain. In Jim's case, he just arranged to be treated as trusted individuals closely associated with family treated. Okay, that's true. That's what he's doing. But Cheryl, why is it ethical? Is it ethical then to address someone's communication tendencies, to position yourself as someone they know when really they don't? They know you in the sense you're sitting in your home and giving them I think I said security, fire alarm survey. Okay. And so for the midterm, you might have questions like this that ask you short answer to say, tell me why this is or isn't ethical. Okay. Okay, Ranesh, let's see what you had to say. I do think that Jim is being unethical in his approach to building trust among his homeowners. He's providing the owners with just short notice to make decisions when they've already accepted to take their home security test. The homeowner now feels a sense of obligation to allow him in and out of the house, which is an act of trust. He only had to first become associated with the concept of trust. The intensely positive other associations which become linked to him and his advice. More alarming is that the buyers are unaware that they're giving trust of what they are giving to Jim. Sorry, my bad. You wrote it right. I just read it wrong. Just because we can use psychological tactics to gain consent doesn't mean we are entitled to that. This is from Page Limit. Jim is hesitant to share his secret with the author since it is not a trade secret, but a secret that is deceptive. Okay. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether I agree or disagree with your position, but in this case, Ranesh, that's what I'm looking for. Take a stand, take a stance, and then have a reasoned, rational justification for that stance. All right, and this is what's going to be demanded of you when you're if you're writing PR, if you're writing marketing or whatever, when you're working in a comms department for an organization. That the marketplace moves very quickly. All right. Okay. All right. Good job. All right. Next from last week, the essay. Okay. So we're going to do one of these every 2 weeks. Right. Give you a little bit of a breather room. And for this first one, okay, I wanted you to take a look at chapter 2 of Wilson et al. All right, in which they discuss some of the communication fundamentals needed to shape attitudes and change behaviors. All right, so I asked you just to pick anybody, any group, any behavior that you wanted. Your voice, first person, third person, whatever, it's all up to you. Your tone, it could be academic, it could be conversational, was all up to you. But there were a couple things that I wanted you to make sure that you did. Okay. First and foremost is your essay needed to reflect an understanding of your target audience's core beliefs and values. All right, if I couldn't pick that up straight away, I'll tell you. And what I'll be doing is I'll be pulling your essays out, first running them through a Flesch-Kincaid scale to see if they're 8.7 or below, and then I'll start reading through them and giving you feedback. All right. If you're able, please put these in PDF format. It just helps me in terms of the click to get to them and grade them. And then I'll take the document with my feedback and I'll attach it to my reply to you. Okay. So I've looked at everybody's essay. All right. The first thing that I did was run it through Flesch-Kincaid readability scale. And excuse me, that's good coffee. I must unhappily report that only 36%, roughly, statistically within the margin of error, over a third of the class had essays that scored 8.7 or below. Okay, if your essay is not scoring 8.7, I will tell you in the in my feedback to you. In fact, I think I've gone through and for everyone whose essay is not below 8.7, you're gonna get a little reply from me saying your essay has a FK score of, and if it's above 8.7, I give you the number, and then you must redo it. You must redo it. Now, what I want you to do is when you redo it, send it as a reply to my reply. This way, it'll allow me to find what you're doing very quickly and easily. All right. Now, in my first video, I explained to you that the reason why, some of you have emailed me going, geez, trying to get it into this scale down to 8.7 is killing me. Yeah, I know. I mean, they're not saying this is an easy exercise, but the reason that I'm doing this, and I explained in the first video, is that when you go to work in comms, this is frequent that you're going to have a box. You're going to have limitations on things that go out, things that represent the organization, certain words that the organization will want used or not words used, words used or not words, certain length, number of words, certain scores on readability scales. These types of limiting parameters are very common in the strategic communications world. Very common. And so, first of all, for you to develop an awareness of it, and then secondly, how you navigate through it. That's in your best interest. Okay. So if it's not 8-7 and below, you will see a note from me. You got to get it there, and you have till the end of next week to do it. And then you lose all of the points. And I'll give you maybe one for answering the question if you answer the question, but you lose the points for the forum. All right, for that week, just for that week. Okay. Now, for those of you that did score 8-7 or below, I'm going to be reading. I read through your essays, and I am reading and looking carefully for any structural issues, typographical errors, spelling errors, unorthodox punctuation. Although I'm not a real stickler about punctuation. Maybe I should, in my grading, maybe I should be more, because a number of organizations are that you might work for. All right. So unless things are really out of whack, you probably won't hear from me about that. But more importantly, what I'm looking for, what I'm reading is to be able to identify that you have a target audience and that you show some understanding of your target audience's core beliefs and values. Now, how do you do that? Well, first of all, you speak to them in a way that they're going to understand. And secondly, you need to decide what it is that you're up to. And once you decide what it is that you're up to, what it is that you're doing, then speak to the group that you need to get it done. All right. Try not to, let's say that, some of you have, I read through a lot of your essays already, and some of you have this group versus this group, and you're in favor of what this group is doing. You're not in favor of what this group is doing. And in your essay, you spend most of your time criticizing what this group is doing. And then you're saying, well, the two groups should work together. Okay. If what you're calling for at the end of your essay is for the two groups to work together, then what you need to do is to construct an essay that demonstrates that you understand why it is that this group is not working with this group. Write to that sympathetically to encourage this group to work with this group. Okay. And if an understanding, a sense of, a feeling, a sound of that doesn't jump off the page and slap me in the face, then I'll say something to you in the comments. So when I finish grading, making comments on your piece, I'll create a Word file. So if you open it up in Microsoft Word, you can read my comments, and I will send it as a reply to your post. So make sure that you go back, look at week number 2, look to see if I've replied to your post. And I think you get notices when I do through Blackboard. Okay. Look to see the replies to your posts. All right. And if the reply says, your essay has an FK score of any number that happens to be 8.7, you got to do it again, send it as a reply to that. Or if the reply to your post says, here it is, okay, then go ahead and open up that document, okay, and then therein you will find my feedback, my evaluation. Sorry, I was reading and trying to talk to you the same, but I shouldn't do that. Okay, all right. So the other thing that I want you to to be on top of that I sent you last week, week 2, you need to start dividing up into groups and determining what you're going to do for your semester project, and go over into the course content folders. Go over to the assignment folder, the assignments, and you will see right at the top, it's called the semester project. Download that sheet. That gives you all the details, because when we get together at Regent in just a little over a month, we are going to go over your completed part 1 of that project. Okay. All right, everybody, that's it for the last week. Everybody have a great week. If you have any questions, about the essays or this week's readings or anything like that, please reach out to me by email. Otherwise, I will see you on Blackboard. Okay, take care. God bless. Bye bye.